Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's episode of Poetry Live. Tonight I'm going to be reading some Charles Bukowski for you all, so I hope you enjoyed that. And hello Queen, hello Mark as well, come in the two of you, come in. Hello Aggie, you're back for some more, excellent. And hello Bob, hello, come in. Hello, who else have we got? Hello Arcadina. Hello Lance. Hello. Welcome, guys. Come in. Oh, wow. Coming in thick and fast now. Hello, Barracuda. Hello, Mike. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's edition of Poetry Live. We're true to form. Hello, Arcadina. As I've said many times, we take requests on this show, and I like getting requests coming in. And tonight, Queen has requested that we do some Bukowski, so here I am, ready to do some Bukowski for you all. So I'm hugely excited about getting into this. Hope you guys are looking forward to this as well. It should be fun, although having run through all of my anthologies downstairs, I couldn't find, for some reason, I know I've got Bukowski somewhere, I just couldn't find any Bukowski to hand, so instead of using a book tonight, I'm using Google. But there should be a volume somewhere. I have a feeling it might be back at my parents' house over the river on the other side of England. But hey, we're here tonight, we've got the poems, that's the important thing. So without further ado, ladies and gents, this is Bukowski's A Smile to Remember. We had goldfish, and they circled around and around in the bowl on the table near the heavy drapes, covering the picture window, and my mother, always smiling, wanting us all to be happy, told me, "Be happy, Henry." And she was right. It's better to be happy if you can, but my father continued to beat her and me several times a week while raging inside his 6'2" frame because he couldn't understand what was attacking him from within. My mother, poor fish, wanting to be happy, beaten 2 or 3 times a week, telling me to be happy. "Henry, smile. Why don't you ever smile?" And then she would smile to show me how, and it was the saddest smile I ever saw. One day, the goldfish died, all 5 of them. They floated on the water on their sides with their eyes still open. And when my father got home, he threw them to the cat there on the kitchen floor. And we watched as my mother smiled. That, ladies and gents, was A Smile to Remember by Bukowski. A very dark opening to tonight's show. Hello for those of you who've just come in. Welcome. We're reading some Charles Bukowski. I'm Simon. I do the Poetry Live show over on Periscope every night at this time, reading poems. So hello and welcome. And because I can see a lot of you are watching through the web thing. Hello Sarah, hello. Do please drop me a line and say hello over on Twitter at SimonTellsTales. Let me know how you're enjoying this show. A very powerful poem there to start with. Indeed. I think those comments are coming through a wee bit delayed though, by the sounds of it. So if I'm not responding to comments on here properly, it's because you guys are about 2 minutes out of sync. But keep them coming through anyway. I do like to see them. Anyway, this next poem by Bukowski is Alone with Everybody. The flesh covers the bone, and they put a mind in there, and sometimes a soul, and the women break vases against the walls, and the men drink too much, and nobody finds the one but keep looking. crawling in and out of beds. Flesh covers the bone, and the flesh searches for more than flesh. There's no chance at all. We are all trapped by a singular fate. Nobody ever finds the one. The city dumps fill, the junkyards fill, the madhouses fill, the hospitals fill, the graveyards fill. Nothing else fills. Anonymous submission. And there, that was alone with everybody. A rather bleak view of the world. I can't say I share Bukowski's thoughts on that one. Having said that, yeah, it's been a long time since I've lived anywhere near a town or a city to kind of get that feeling. But when I was living in towns and cities, I think I can see where he comes from, that sense of people, but a lack of any real connection with anybody. Anyway, this next poem is Bluebird. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I pour whiskey on him and inhale cigarette smoke, and the whores and the bartenders and the grocery clerks never know that he's in there. There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay down. Do you want to mess me up? Do you want to screw up the works? Do you want to blow my book sales in Europe? There's a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too clever. I only let him out at night sometimes when everybody's asleep. I say, I know that you're there, so don't be sad. Then I put him back, but he's singing a little in there. I haven't quite let him die. And we sleep together like that, with our secret pact, and it's nice enough to make a man weep. But I don't weep. Do you? There, that's the question, ladies and gents. Do you weep at Bukowski's chained up bluebird? I'm glad that you like that one. So, what do you like about that one? I think is the question I should ask, because this seems to actually cut back up, and I'm getting comments in real time now. What do you like about that poem? For me, I like the fact that it's Bukowski kind of admitting to something. Bukowski's got this very cool guy persona that's kind of very bleak, whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking, almost Morrissey-esque persona. And I do like that kind of admission that there is that person inside. As Sarah was saying there, yes, that inner struggle, hiding the true self. I do like knowing that deep down in Bukowski there is something that's a little bit chirpier and happier than the tough guy that he puts on for the rest of us. But returning to the tough guy of Bukowski, this one is Are You Drinking? Washed up on shore, the old yellow notebook out again, I ranked from the bed as I did last year. We'll see the doctor Monday. Yes, doctor. Weak legs, vertigo, headaches, and my back hurts. Are you drinking? He will ask. Are you getting your exercise, your vitamins? I think that I'm just ill with life, the same stale, fluctuating factors. Even at the track I watch the horses run by, and it seems meaningless. I leave early after buying tickets on the remaining races. Taking off? Asks the motel clerk. Yes, it's boring, I tell him. If you think it's boring out there, he tells me, you ought to be back here. So here I am, propped up against my pillows again. Just an old guy, just an old writer with a yellow notebook. Something is walking across the floor toward me. Oh, it's just my cat this time. There we go. I'm back to that tough guy, Bukowski, that heavy drinking, cigarette smoking Bukowski that we know so well for being the famous one. I must say I'm reading Bukowski tonight, but I do have big problems with Bukowski. He's not actually one of my favourite poets, though I am quite happy to read him. I dislike this very, very typical drinky persona that he's got going on. I don't think he's not an honest poet for me. Bukowski, when I read Bukowski, he's not got honesty there, and I've got similar issues with Wordsworth. Actually, I put Wordsworth and Bukowski in the same league. Well, I'm going to take that as a compliment, Queen. So I'm glad that you've had an emotional response from that. Yeah, I don't like Wordsworth, Sarah. I admire Wordsworth's craft in the same way that I admire Bukowski's craft. I think as poets, they are fabulously skilled wordsmiths and masters of what they're doing. But yeah, the highest mark I ever got as an undergrad was an English exam where I tore Wordsworth to pieces. Because for me, Wordsworth claimed that the poetry he wanted to write was poetry that he wanted to be reflective of England at that time and of what was taking place. And really that especially applies to the prelude that he wrote. Now the prelude is a wonderful poem, it's brilliant, it's complex, it's fabulously written, but Wordsworth was actually writing at a time of huge industrial revolution, and as a writer I love machines, I love things, I love devices and the way that they work, especially kind of industrial revolution type machines. And I think it was an opportunity sorely missed that the poets around that time of industrial revolution in England decided to focus on talking about the natural landscape instead of trying to see the beauty and the majesty in the machines taking place within towns. So my issue with Wordsworth is that he claims to be portraying this England and wanting to reflect what's happening in England, but actually he's not. What he's reflecting upon and what he's trying to put across is an England that he wants to perceive. This dying, fading England, this rural England, when actually I think as a poet he almost owed it to posterity to look at explaining some of the other elements taking place. But that's my issue with Wordsworth. Bukowski similarly is a wonderful poet, brilliantly talented poet, who is conscious of the fact that he's hiding behind this persona, hiding behind needing to be this guy to sell books. And here and there you can see Bukowski, the real Bukowski, almost between the lines of the poem, hiding in there. And I wish Bukowski would come out and show a little bit more of himself. And in fact, on that note, the next poem that I'm going to read for you tonight is actually on the fire suicides of the Buddhists. Because I think here, as he starts to look towards explaining something that isn't Charles Bukowski, and I'm aware that a lot of Charles Bukowski's poetry is about Charles Bukowski, but here I think he starts to look at something else, and in doing so we slip and we get some real Bukowski taking place. On the fire suicides of the Buddhists. Original courage is good, motivation be damned, and if you say they are trained to feel no pain, are they guaranteed in this? Is it still not possible to die for somebody else? You sophisticates who lay back and make statements of explanation, I have seen the red rose burning, and this means more. And that, I think, is actually my favourite Bukowski poem. It's where we start to see Charles Bukowski actually. That's a fabulous image, isn't it, Sarah? I have seen the red rose burning. This is Bukowski trying to look at, to discuss some much bigger issues than he's perhaps dealing with in his other poems. So I really like that one. That's a nice bit of Bukowski looking at some larger issues, and I think that's probably where we get the real Bukowski slipping through. This next poem, no, not going to be that one. This next poem is actually one of his kind of longer poems, more filled out poems. This one is Crucifix in a Deathbed. Yes, they begin out in a willow, I think. The starch mountains begin out in the willow and keep right on going without regard for pumas and nectarines. Somehow, these mountains are like an old woman with a bad memory and a shopping basket. We are in a basin. That is the idea. Down in the sand and the alleys, this land punched in, cuffed out, divided, held like a crucifix in a death hand. This land bought, resold, bought again and sold again, the war's long over. The Spaniards all the way back in Spain, down in the thimble again, and now real estaters, subdividers, landlords, freeway engineers arguing. This is their land and I walk on it, live on it a little while near Hollywood. Here I see young men in rooms listening to glazed recordings, and I think too of old men sick of music, sick of everything, and death like suicide. I think is sometimes voluntary. And to get your hold on the land here, it is best to return to the Grand Central Market. See the old Mexican women, the poor. I am sure you have seen these same women many years before, arguing with the same young Japanese clerks, witty, knowledgeable and golden, among their soaring store of oranges, apples, avocados, tomatoes, cucumbers. And you know how these look. They do look good, as if you could eat them all, light a cigar and smoke away the bad world. Then it's time to go back to the bars, the same bars, wooden, stale, merciless green, with a young policeman walking through, scared and looking for trouble. And the beer is still bad. It has an edge that already mixes with vomit and decay, and you've got to be strong in the shadows to ignore it, to ignore the poor, and to ignore yourself and the shopping bag between your legs down there, feeling good with its avocados and oranges and fresh fish and wine bottles. Who needs a Fort Lauderdale winter? 25 years ago, There used to be a whore there, with a film over one eye, who was too fat and made little silver bells out of cigarette tinfoil. The sun seemed warmer then, although this was probably not true, and you take your shopping bag outside and walk along the street, and green beer hangs there just above your stomach like a short and shameful shawl, and you look around and no longer see any old men. And that was a Crucifix in a Death Hand by Bukowski. An interesting question you asked there, Sarah. Which are the poems that Bukowski... That's the question. What poems would he think show the real him? Well, I think, on reflection, even the poems where I think he's hiding behind a persona are the real him. It's the persona Bukowski. I think in these things, to see him, you kind of have to look at the body of work as a whole. Because understanding the Bukowski who hides behind the drinker, the smoker, the writer, who always plays deliberately upon the stereotype of a writer, understanding that guy is just as important as understanding the guy who seems to be spending a lot of his time just looking for a connection with someone, with anything. And this is the wonderful, wonderful thing about being able to read poets in their context, in amongst everything else, and we see them as a whole. And this, for Arkadina, who's just being introduced to Bukowski tonight, I do recommend, if you want to learn more about who Bukowski is, to pick up a volume. Apparently there's a volume sat at my parents by the looks of it, and understand a little bit more about Bukowski. Read more into him. Get to meet this person hiding in between the lines. I'm going to do one last... Yes! Absolutely, Sarah. Very much so. Lots of different delicate brushstrokes over here, all combining. This, though, is going to be my last Bukowski poem of the evening. This is My Friend, the Parking Lot Attendant. He's a dandy. Small moustache, usually sucking on a cigar. He tends to lean into cars as he transacts business. First time I met him, he said, "Hey, you're gonna make a killing." Maybe, I answered. Next meeting it was, "Hey, Ramrod, what's happening?" Very little, I told him. Next time I had my girlfriend with me and he just grinned. Next time I was alone. "Hey," he asked, "where's the young chick?" "I left her at home." "Bullshit," he said. "I'll bet she dumped you." And the next time he really leant into the car. "What's a guy like you doing driving a BMW?" "I'll bet you inherited your money. You didn't get this car with your brains." "How'd you guess?" I answered. That was some weeks ago. I haven't seen him lately. Fella like that, chances are, he just moved on to better things. And that's my final Bukowski of the evening. And we see in there that Bukowski who is desperate, I think, very desperate for human interaction, for a connection with someone. And I think he portrays that quite beautifully there as he tries to make that connection with the parking lot attendant. I'll say, when I used to work in retail, I kind of have a lot of similar experiences to that. Sat in a uniform, dealing with customers all day, you do get the folk who come in there and are desperately trying to forge a connection with you, who want to be seen. And I think Bukowski, famous as he was, kind of suffered from that desire to be recognised, to be seen, for people to make a connection with him. So, very tragic, Sarah, and I think it's only that kind of Bukowski, the tragic Bukowski, that I can deal with. The one who's playing on the stereotypes, the one who's full of bravado. That guy I have a bit more difficulty with. But I think doing this tonight has been really nice. So thank you, Queen, for suggesting it. Doing this has been a nice way of putting it through. Well, there you go. I'm glad you liked it, Queen. Very, very glad indeed. I think it was nice. I think we covered a lot of different types of Bukowski poems there. I like the discussion as well, Sarah. The discussion is fun. It made me a bit sad yesterday that I had to go and run off so quickly because I was feeling a bit under the weather still. But I'm back, re-energised, had some good sleep. And yes, I like that way we can go and look at a poet over the course of several poems, and we start to see someone who does become better. I'm feeling much, much better, Tara. I just had a bit of a bug on Sunday, and so I got no sleep at all, which was a pain going into Monday. Fortunately, I had, a fair whack of sleep last night. So I'm back, feeling fab, so I can give you guys the energy that you deserve, which makes me much heavy. A bluebird, even. A bluebird for Tara, just like Bukowski's we could do. That could be fun. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is, fortunately, I had a rare coincidence in that this morning, on the way into work, I was listening to some Leonard Cohen and thinking to myself, I should read some Leonard Cohen on the show. And lo and behold, then I go and get a message off of Sarah suggesting a number of poets, including Leonard Cohen, to read on the show. So we'll do some Cohen tomorrow, which is going to make me sad because when Cohen reads his poetry, he's got one of the sexiest voices in the world, and it's super gravelly and awesome. And I wish I could sound like Cohen. But we'll have to go for my accent instead and my voice to doing it. So I'm really looking forward to doing some Leonard Cohen with you guys tomorrow. If you'd like to turn up for that, that should be a lot of fun. Anyway, big thanks to all of you for coming along tonight. Thank you. I'm glad you like the reading voice. So I'm just a huge fan of voices and accents, and Leonard Cohen's got a fabulous one. If you've ever listened to Viggo Mortensen, I do have Catch. Yes, Tara, it's Catch/SimonTellsTales if you want to get hold of it, /SimonTellsTales. But yes, that stuff's all there for you. And I just like people's voices. So James Earl Jones, I'd like his voice. I'd like Cohen's voice. I wouldn't mind having Richard Burton's voice. All great voices, all great guys when they read poetry. Viggo Mortensen does a great version of The Wasteland, if you can catch that on YouTube. But thank you so much, guys. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Queen and Agatha and Arkadina and Sarah and Tara. Really appreciate you guys coming to share this with me. I hope you enjoyed this, and hopefully, by the end of the week, clocks and time zones will get sorted again, and you'll all can go back to knowing exactly when and where I'm doing this show. Anyway, I'm off now, guys. So thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.